Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satchidananda Vishvotpatyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Namaha. So we saw the whole explanation by Brahmaji of how Bhagwan Narayana is the source behind his power to create, and then how the creation unfolds in various stages. And last we saw was Brahmaji telling Naradji that his mind never goes in any unwanted directions, his senses are in control because the Lord is established in his heart. In 33rd verse is what he said, that Name Rishikani Patantya Satpathe Yanme Hridautkantyavata Dhrito Harihi. And he says that, I am the Veda personified, my life is full of austere penance, and I am the Lord of Prajapatis. And adored by them all, I practiced yoga in all thoroughness with a concentrated mind, yet I failed to realize him to whom I owe my existence. Meaning the Lord is not the product of all these. These sadhanas one can definitely do, and it will purify the mind. It will ensure that the bhakti becomes stable in our heart. But darshan of Bhagwan happens only by the grace of the Lord. And so here he says both these things. One aspect is where he says that the mind never goes in the wrong direction because Bhagwan is in the heart. But how did Bhagwan come into the heart? By none of these methods by themselves. So it doesn't mean we should not do any of these. Does not mean that yoga and all these things should not be practiced. But what it means here is, it is grace of the Lord alone that finally our mind abides in Bhagwan. So he says, I bow down to the lotus feet of that Lord. Natosmyaham taccharanam samiyusham bhavachidam swastyayanam sumangalam yo hyatma maya vibhavam sma paryagat yatha nabha swantam atha pare kutaha. So he says that, so I bow down to his lotus feet. Natoham asmi tacharanam samiyusham. And his feet are the abode. Swastyayanam sumangalam, abode of all auspiciousness. The feet are the abode of all auspiciousness. And they end the cycle of birth and death. For those who take refuge at his feet. Atmamaya vibhavam paryagat. How? Yatha nabha swantam atha pare kutaha. Now this is a strange analogy that he gives. He says, like the sky knows not its limits, he too is not able to realize the extent of his own Maya. How then can others know it? He too is not able to realize the extent of his Maya, meaning from Bhagwan's standpoint, though, there is no what we call creation at all. From absolute standpoint, there is no creation. And from the Ishvara standpoint, Brahman plus Maya becomes Ishvara. So Maya is not controlled. Maya is not controlling Bhagwan. Bhagwan is the one who controls Maya. There is no doubt. But the power of Maya is such that unending is samsara. So this is like a contrasting analogy type. That if Bhagwan only doesn't fathom the power of his own Maya, that what all this Maya can do in terms of creating so many Brahmandas and so many Jivas, and then each Jiva has a karma cycle, and then according to karma cycle, they keep taking birth. Now just imagine countless number of Jivas. Every Jiva gets the karma phala properly, and every Jiva has been given appropriate field for exhausting their karma. And everything works so precisely. So if Bhagwan does not know, how can we know? So don't go by the fact that Bhagwan doesn't know. Bhagwan is Sarvagnya. Bhagwan knows everything. But this is to say that if Maya of the Lord is so powerful that the Lord himself, as though doesn't know the extent to which his Maya is spread, meaning it is Ananta Koti Brahmanda. So he says here, then how can you and I know? Meaning best is to surrender to Bhagwan. And it is by surrendering to his feet only one gets out of the cycle of birth and death. Not by any amount of our efforts can one come out of this. And so that's why he says that neither him nor Naradji nor even Shivji know the glory of this Lord, the true nature of this Lord. Naham na yuyam yadritam gatim vidur navama deva kimuta pare suraha. Then how these devatas and all will know? If the creator Brahmaji doesn't know. Naradji is the Manas Putra Brahmaji, meaning symbol of so many saints, sages. And Shivji, who is the destroyer, and whose Ishtadevta is Vishnu. Still they don't know. He says, then what to talk about the Devatas and all of them? Tanmayaya mohita buddhayas vidam vinirmitam chatma samam vichakshmahe. So he says, our mind is so confounded that we fail to comprehend the reality even of this universe, which is a creation of his Maya. But we merely speculate according to our own understanding. We are saying according to our understanding how this creation comes about, and creation is a product of his Maya. His Maya is so powerful and incomprehensible that we don't understand his Maya, as though he himself doesn't understand his Maya. So whatever we talk about creation is only a speculation from our understanding. So this is the bhakti way of saying that the creation theories are only speculation. So they cannot be foolproof. From logic and Vedanta standpoint, we say that the changeless cannot produce the changing. So there is no creation actually. So what to talk about any creation theories? How did the snake produce? Rope produced the snake. There is no theory for it. Rope never produced the snake. That's the truth. But I am seeing the snake, so then some theory has to be cooked up. The same way here it is. So this is the bhakti way of saying that whatever we think about creation is our speculation. Vinirmitam chat masamam vichakshmahi. Mohita buddhi is our own speculation through our own this thing. And Brahmaji is saying this, not any ordinary jiva is not saying. Brahmaji is saying that Maya is so incomprehensible. Brahma, Naradji, Vishnu Bhagwan, nobody knows about the glory of the Maya of Bhagwan. Bhagwan's glory is different. That he anyway explained earlier. But the Maya of Bhagwan is incomprehensible. Which in the Gita also Bhagwan said, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. My Maya is very difficult to cross. But who will cross? Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. One who seeks the refuge of the Lord alone will cross over. So that is the indication here. Now Brahmaji summarizes actually this creation, what he spoke about in so many earlier verses, that he will summarize quickly now. So see verse 37. Some more aspects he will describe, and then the summarization happens. From 41 onwards, the summarization of the the creation happens. So यस्यावतार कर्माणि गायन्ति यस्मदादयः नयं विदन्ति तत्त्वेन तस्मै भगवते नमः. Salutations to that Lord whose glory and whose appearance as this world Brahmaji and all others continuously sing, but they don't know his true glory. So one may say, but why are they singing? See, only two choices we have. No, either we can brood on Maya or we can think of the Lord. That is the interesting choice that Arjun made. He between the Narayani Sena of Lord Krishna and Bhagavan Krishna, who will not lift any arms, he chose Krishna. That is a seeker's choice. Every moment we have. Either we can choose the Lord who will not lift any weapons, meaning he is the Sakshi in us, this absolute self in us, but without his presence, nothing happens. He is not the Karta, but without his presence, nothing happens. So either we choose to think about the Lord and his glories and absorb the mind in the Lord, or we are going to brood upon Maya. Now, the more I brood upon Maya, the more delusion it will cause, the more bondage and more cycles of birth and death. The more I think of Bhagavan, more the mind abides in that. We may not be able to comprehend his glories fully because anyway it is impossible. See, it is interesting now. Maya is also incomprehensible. Bhagavan is also incomprehensible. So what do I choose? Better to choose Bhagavan. Why choose this Maya and get stuck in that? So if both are incomprehensible, no, but Bhagavan is unmanifest and Maya is to manifest and we can see in this whole world. So now Bhagavan's manifestation, they will explain. The next part will come. Avatar part will come. So one can think about Bhagavan through his Leela, through his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Kriya, Leela, Sambandh, all that one can think of Bhagavan. Rather than thinking of anyway some people in the world, some situation, some objects. So he says, Brahmaji and all of them, they constantly sing, though they don't know in reality what is the real nature of the absolute supreme being. That is also the humility of Brahmaji, we should say. Because if Narayan Bhagavan himself gave the knowledge to Brahmaji, how will Brahmaji be not enlightened? Even to say all this, he has to be enlightened or not. But that's an example for us that how they spend their time. So he says, one keeps thinking about that Lord. Saesha adyaha purusha kalpe srijatyajaha. Atma atmani atmana atmanam samyachati cha pati cha. So he says that unborn primal person himself creates, protects, dissolves himself, within himself, by himself, cycle after cycle. That is Advaita. Whole world is an appearance of the Lord. Bhagavan is the Karta, Bhagavan is the Bhokta, Bhagavan is only going through this whole cycle. So when people say, if it is the Leela of Bhagavan, we are suffering. Who is this we? There is no we separate from Bhagavan. One can't say that, this whole dream world is a Leela of that waker and then I am suffering. Baker is lying on the bed nicely and I am suffering in this world. But who are you? There is no separate existence. The cause is nothing but effect in another form. So the effect is cause only. How is there a difference? If I think I am different and God is different, then I say He created and it is His dream and it is His creation and I am suffering. That is actually height of arrogance, no? To proclaim that I am one with God is not height of arrogance. To proclaim I am separate from God is the height of arrogance. Because now I am greater, that I have the ability to be separate from Bhagavan. Meaning I am outside infinity. How is that possible? So Bhagavan only creates, Bhagavan only sustains, Bhagavan only takes away, and Bhagavan only has become all this. That's why the word Atma is used. Atma, Atmani, Atmana, Atmanam, Samyachati cha pati cha. So he creates, protects, and dissolves himself. But we identify with our body and we say, I am born, I am living, I am going to die. So I have fear of death. That I only has to go away. So Brahmaji is explaining this. That he only is doing. And the only way to dissolve this I is to think about him. From Bhakti standpoint, think about Bhagavan. So Brahmaji is also spending time thinking about Bhagavan. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyak samyagavasthitam satyam purnam nirgunam nityam advayam rishe vidanti munayaha prashantatmendriyashayaha yada tadeva saktaihi yada tadeva sattaihi satarkaihi yada tadeva satarkaihi tirodhiyeta viplutam. So now he says here that he is the pure absolute consciousness uniformly abiding as the inner self of all. He is the ever true and perfect, has no beginning or end, and is attributeless, eternal, one without a second. So he says, Narad, those who are given to contemplation realize him only when they have perfectly subdued their body, senses, and their mind. Prashanta Atma Indriya Ashayaha. So they have controlled their mind. And he disappears. Tadeva asat tarkaihi. Those who are attached. So what he says, he, however, disappears from our view when he is assailed by the sophistical reasoning of the wicked. Asat tarka means kutarkal, bad logic, perverted logic. Tadeva asat tarka tirodhiyate viplutam, meaning perversion of the mind and intellect. If it is there, then we don't experience the Lord. Purity of the heart, surrender, devotion is the means to realize that Lord. Now, questioning the existence of God or not having complete belief or complete faith in the Lord does not mean this asat tarka. Asat tarka means many times one knows, but one will still use perverted logic. One knows what is the, intellectually one can understand there has to be a cause, there is absolute truth, there has to be something. But one will still use warped logic. Intellectually one knows that this whole world is changing continuously. But still the perverted logic will say, so what is the point Why should I control my senses? I will eat, drink, and enjoy. So one becomes extrovert. The moment one becomes extrovert, and that's why the scriptures indicate that Vedant cannot be given to those who are not adhikari. Even in the Gita, at the end, he explains that in the 18th chapter. That don't give this knowledge to the person who is not ready for it. Why? Because they can misuse it and destroy themselves and destroy others also. Because if the world is an illusion, then why should I live in self-control? Anyway, it's an illusion. So let me do whatever I feel like. So that is called kutarka. Or to say that God does not exist in spite of knowing that God exists. Through the intellectual conviction, one knows that God exists, but the way one lives is as though God does not exist. Not following dharma. Why should I fear God? Why should I live in morality? I will live in a free-minded spirit. There is nobody who can bind me. Kutarka only it is. So many types of kutarka are there. How the mind and intellect becomes perverted. Charvak philosophy is one method of kutarka, where they believe only in matter. Then matter alone is real. What I see is real. Now that is perverted logic. What I see is real. That means I am an animal. I don't have buddhi. I'm not using my buddhi. In fact, I'm using the buddhi. That's why it is kutarka. That I'm using the buddhi to justify my indulgence. Whether I know it or I don't know it. When I don't know it and I'm doing something, that is still understandable. But many times I know that there has to be something which is real. How can this be just a product of accident? But I use it to justify my indulgence. So they will say matter comes together to produce consciousness. There is nothing called consciousness. Ultimate is only matter, and 5 elements are the ultimate. Life is only one. You only live once. YOLO philosophy. And so eat, drink, and enjoy. Why bother about karma? Why bother about right and wrong? Why bother about dharma? Why should you follow so many rules, restrictions? Live a free life, free spirited life. Which is what we are seeing out there happening. In the name of evolution, actually devolution is happening. That is called kutarka. The buddhi should become more and more refined to distinguish between what is dharma and what is adharma. Now, in the name of why we are breaking down all moralities, all boundaries, we are being more liberal-minded, open-minded, and this and that. Destroy the whole culture. One doesn't want to do so many things, doesn't want to follow right and wrong. And that is a strange thing. If somebody comes and harms them, then suddenly right and wrong question will come up. How can this person do it? But if they go and harm, there's nothing called right and wrong. That is perverted logic. How many relationships? Make and break is so easy. Hindu culture doesn't have the concept of divorce. That is one aspect. Maybe through changing times, one should change few things, no doubt. But this is the other extreme. No need of marriage. How can you live with one partner for whole life? You are wasting your life. It's an opportunity to explore. Array, what perverted logic it is. Are you an animal? What is wrong if I live as an animal? Okay, live. Then what can we do? That is perverted logic. Then this will happen. Bhagwan's darshan will not happen in the heart. Because that requires the mind to turn introvert. The principle is very simple. If Brahmaji said that yoga and practice of all this, that cannot make him realize Bhagwan. Those who are sensual, indulgent, using perverted logic, destroying all dharma, destroying sense control, destroying devotion, destroying knowledge, tapasya, all this, there is no hope only of realizing that. Oh, but Swamiji, question is, do they even want that? Huh? That's a big question. Then they may not want it in a formal sense. They may say, I don't believe in God, so which God? Your God is obsolete. Science is, I believe in only science. If I really believe in science, I will come to God. But I'm using science as an excuse to justify my stupidity. That is the most, that is called perverted logic or not. Science should be to have a scientific mind means what? The ability to observe life as it is and come to collect the data, come to analyze it, come to one's conclusions by oneself, and have the guts to change the false notion in the light of the new truth that the data reveals. Who is doing that scientific minded inquiry, quoting some few people left and right things and saying I am very scientific minded? Have you, even if one quotes some great scientist, there's nothing wrong, but have you followed the whole thought process properly? Have you questioned what are the loopholes in this? In Vedant we do that, in religion in Vedant we do that properly. Question every single thing, and it has to stand the test of time. It is not simply blind belief. So many masters have proved this. And so you are seeing that Shaunakji and Parikshit Maharaj and so many of them are asking what all questions they are asking. And Brahmaji himself is being questioned by Narad Muni. What is your power? How did you create? What are you doing? We know it is not your power. So this kind of questions are there in this. That is called scientific mindedness, now open-minded inquiry, and then the ability to change. So using the garb of science to hide one's own either lack of inquiry or one's indulgence or some license one needs to just cover up all the wrong things one is doing, and that is not science, that is perverted logic. Then experience of realization is far, far away. Though it is one's own self, one will not realize because the mind and intellect have gone very far. One has to retrace back, bring it back. That requires this control. And that's why he says that sense control is a very, very important aspect. And so, Rishe Vadanti Munayaha Prashantatmendriyashayaha. These people will realize, those who have controlled their mind, controlled their senses, etc. And this word control is not to put a restriction. The word control is to discipline the mind in such a way that its potential will manifest. It is not a restriction to destroy its potential. It is a disciplining to manifest its potential. That only one doesn't understand. Like right now also, if you see, we are in a lockdown situation. For what is that? Now I can view it as a, oh God, my freedom has been restricted completely and I can't go out. I'm frustrated and lockdown exhaustion is happening and now I don't know how to keep myself inspired. And that is one attitude. Second attitude is, if this restriction is for my protection, for my safety, for my freedom to live. Otherwise I will die, go out there. I'm not saying everybody who gets corona dies, but I'm just saying that how much trouble. So it's a disciplining, then use it to manifest the potential. How many new things are happening or not? Simple things, satsang people have turned to. That's the biggest benefit of coronavirus. Look at the attendance in all classes. It increased like anything because now everybody is doing satsang. No escape distraction, no travel excuses, no party, no socializing, nothing. So kya karo? Bhajan karo. Nowadays we don't have to struggle to get people. Earlier you put an announcement, then there 2 weeks back, 3 weeks before, you start putting slowly, push, and you get some few people. Now we don't have to do. Yesterday I put the announcement of Karma Yoga discussion group for youth. We already had 250 registrations in that. So now one day before also is enough. Public is just getting into satsang mode. That's a good way, no? How the restriction of this lockdown has helped the people to manifest their potential, turn towards the divine. You may say, but that is only going to last till the lockdown. Doesn't matter. Parikshit Raja got into lockdown for 7 days, he got mukti, na? Then, anyway, our condition in Mumbai though is going to last longer. So more satsang. Who knows, by the time it will become our way of life, and that is Bhagwan's Krupa only. So I can look at control as a restrictive thing and then I want to break free and all that. But actually it is the other way. Control is not a restriction. Control is the disciplining to actually break free from my own slavish dependence, from my own ignorance, from my own attachments. It is to break free. So spirituality and self-control must go hand in hand. This topic keeps coming many times in Bhagavatam because many people in the name of either Vedanta will get into indulgence, or in the name of science and all that get into indulgence, or in the name of bhakti also. If there is deep demand of the senses, then we say that, okay, you offer whatever sense enjoyment to Bhagwan and have. So if I am very attached to food, then okay, offer Chappan Bhog to Bhagwan and have. I am attached to seeing form, then see the form of Bhagwan. Then people say, okay, anyway, there's nothing wrong in enjoying. I will offer everything to Bhagwan and just enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. This is not a license to enjoy. There's nothing wrong in having enjoyment in life, but enjoyment is not the purpose of life. So even for a bhakta, sense control comes into play. That's the point that is being made here. That if a person lives in sense control and mind control, the person will realize the Lord in the heart, because purity will be there. And if his perverted logic is being used, then realization doesn't happen. And what audacity we have to, that is another perverted logic. We have the audacity to say Bhagwan was wrong. How Bhagwan can go wrong? I'm not saying don't question Bhagwan. Question left, right and center, no problem. But with open mind to understand where Bhagwan acted, for what motive, with what objective, what was his vision behind that action. And can he be wrong? Okay, don't start with the assumption that he is wrong. Start with the assumption that yes, he may have done something which is questionable. So question, but with an open mind. Many times we don't do any of that, and we, tiny little insignificant useless jiva, has the audacity to say God is wrong. Where did Bhagwan go wrong? No, Mahabharata already did so much adharma. Apply the brain, apply the buddhi and see properly where did Bhagwan go wrong. Not a single case can Bhagwan be held responsible. Ramayana, why he sent Sita ji away? There are so many reasons. You go into the depth, one will understand. But one doesn't do that open-minded inquiry. He did wrong, he did mistake, he did blunder. And some hearsay, some vested interest, people who create all this to make us feel our culture is useless and outdated and primitive and what is that? Misogynist and exploiting women, and what all things will come into caste system and exploitation and animal sacrifice and this and that. Terrific. Because we don't inquire into it properly. The other day I told you, I don't know whether I shared here or not, but the other day when there was one play on Mahabharata, in that Krishna Bhagwan's character only saying that everybody was attached to something or the other and they did a mistake. I was also attached. After all, I am also, the product of the yuga in which I am born. So I also made mistakes in the war. I am a human finally. Hare Rama. That's called perverted logic. And what clapping in the audience people had. Wow. Complete expression of ignorance. Andhe naiva niyamana yathanda. That's the manifestation of that line. Blind leading the blind. Where they will go? Fall in a ditch. That's what is going to happen when we don't use our buddhi Some fellow who is perverted is using some buddhi and putting that seed into our head. We don't have our logic and our clarity. We have not opened our shastra. We have not reflected. So those perverted thoughts get into our head. Then we spread it to another 20,000 people. This is more dangerous than coronavirus, by the way. And nobody is bothered about this. The infection, the thought infection that we create, no, nobody is bothered about that. We become parrots and portray ourselves as very modern, liberal thinkers and outlook which we have. Think twice before even spreading something like that. Open the book and read what is even there. And how many WhatsApp forwards go on and on and on. Somebody writes something. Uddhav Gita, yesterday somebody sent me that forward. That a forward has been going on minimum for the last 5 to 8 years. Uddhav Gita, where Uddhavji is being asked, Krishna Bhagavan is telling, you have never asked me anything, you ask me something, I will tell you, I will bless you with it. And Uddhav says, I want nothing, but I just want to know something, can you please clarify? So he says, why did you not help Yudhishthir in the game of dice? Why did you not save Draupadi? Why did you not? A friend is one who really protects the friend. You did not come to their rescue. And Krishna also gives some answer in that. Perverted answer it is. And the sad part is nothing of that exists in Uddhav Gita. Not a single word of that exists in Uddhav Gita, because Uddhav is the highest quality of a seeker. And to Uddhav, the Upadesh that Bhagavan gave is equal to an Upanishad. Nothing about Mahabharata is there in that Uddhav Gita. It is about Brahman, it is about self, it is about Mahavakya, it is about all those things. And in the name of Uddhav Gita, left, right and center, this WhatsApp forward is going on. And people also are seeing, yeah, Krishna did like this. Hello. What purity of mind do we even have to understand what Bhagavan did finally, first of all? And then the other logic that people bring is, after all this is human being created only. There is nothing, none of these shastras are true. There's some man who sat and wrote poetry thousands of years back, and now we are sitting and reading all that. It's all perverted logic. Following this shastra, how many people have realized the truth? So even if you say it is written by somebody, okay, chalo, it is a composition, it's poetry, somebody wrote it. Now what? Following this, have people not realized the truth? Innumerable examples of saints are there who have had darshan of Bhagavan, who have spread love, peace, joy, happiness in this whole world. They are the living embodiment that what Shastra is saying is true. Whether it happened historically or not, you go on debating. That is your freedom. Keep debating. But the impact of this on the life of people, how it has transformed and how it has transformed the lives of others who have come into contact with such people, that is so much more important than so-called historical things. Everything doesn't have to be measured only with history. Half the things that Shakespeare wrote, you think is all factual, historical. So many things are not. But people still read and derive inspiration, and then their life is changed and all that. So this is called perverted logic, where we don't use the buddhi to realize Bhagavan, we use the buddhi to condemn Bhagavan. Now how to realize then? When I am having such a bhav that Bhagavan, what he did is wrong, Bhagavan does not even exist, and is a creation of human mind. There is concept of God is creation of human mind. What all thinking is there? And half of those are borrowed opinions, not even one's own conclusion. You see, so many atheists who have thought by themselves have become some of the greatest saints, because they went by their thinking and their conclusions. They went by inquiry, and then they were ready to change, transform. Vivekananda ji went around asking people, have you seen God? Have you seen God? Don't give me theories. And when he met Ramakrishna, his whole life changed. Gurudev was an agnostic. When he met Shivananda ji, his whole life changed. So, like that, that is called actually open-minded inquiry. So there's nothing wrong in questioning God or asking, why did the Lord do like this? No problem. But keep the mind open. Ask, inquire, find out. With the right conviction, the intellect can be turned towards the Lord. With the wrong conviction, the intellect will be turned away from the Lord. That's what he's saying here. Asat tarka. Asat tarka means that false logic appearing as true logic. You see, the logic is such a tricky thing. You know, we think logic is a powerful tool. It is, but it's a very tricky thing. One is false logic to be known as false logic. Then that is still you can reject. Second is false logic appearing as true logic that one doesn't reject. Third is the logic which I have is not real logic. It's an appearance of logic. Fourth is illogical. There's nothing, no proper logic at all. It's all, there's no cause and effect connection, nothing. Simply in the name of logic, one is putting something together. That is not logic. What I see is real. What logic is that? There's no logic in that. There's no cause effect proper connection. No, eyes are seeing, so it is real. So means eyes are not seeing, so it is not real. That is called illogic. Eyes are seeing is not real. How can you say is logic? How can you say is correct? But many things exist which are not visible to the eye. So logic is a very strange thing. There can be an appearance of logic, there can be illogic, there can be false logic, there can be false logic appearing as true logic. And then there is proper subtle logic which is time tested, which is, that's why Shankaracharya says that in Sadhana Panchakam, Dustarkat Suviramyatam. We go away from this false logic. Then what to do? Shruti Matas Tarkonu Sandhiyata. Follow the scriptural logic, because that is time tested and proper. And there are enough explanations about what is logic, what is false logic, all that. So one will understand when we study the deeper scriptures that this is an apparent true logic, but this is completely false. You know, in Shankaracharya's commentaries, so many objections that he raises are for this only. Where the object, the Purva Pakshi will create, you know, through the Purva Pakshi, Shankaracharya will create some questions which are there in the minds of common people or certain intellectuals or certain philosophers, and which will appear very logical. And then he will refute the whole thing, saying, no, it is not like this. So when we open our books and read, then we can understand, oh, if you actually analyze the question, like simplest thing I'll give you, even if you have not read Shankar Bhashya, doesn't matter. Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, many of you have read. If we see the full arguments of Arjun in the first chapter, it appears very logical that war should not happen. That Arjun is right in his conclusion. So very logically he will explain. From all standpoints. Omens are not right. Body is not capable. Emotionally, how can I kill people? My own people to enjoy the, kingdom. Socially, what people will talk about me, that he's won this kingdom after killing his own people. What a terrible person he is. Culturally, the whole culture of the society will decline. Forefathers will fall. Shraddha karma cannot happen. Gender ratio in the community will get completely destroyed. Intellectually, he says, Ahimsa paramo dharma, how can I fight? So many reasons he gives. Kula dharma, varna dharma, everything will get destroyed. And these traditions have been there for centuries together. Eternal tradition, Shashwata, they are saying. Then all this will get destroyed. For what purpose? That purpose is not worth it. So let me go into forest. Now this appears very logical, and anybody who, just you imagine that in today's situation, and then suppose this is happening on social media. Okay, Arjun put up his arguments on social media. Now see the responses which come to that. Human rights activists will start saying, yes, this is the human rights of people. They are being It's a genocide that Pandavas are going to commit on the Kauravas. This should not happen. And some left liberal fellows, they will start saying that, this will destroy the whole community and whole society. This religion is against, what is that? The people and their development, and there should not be any religion at all kinds of stuff. All fellows will get up to support Arjun, saying, yes, you are right. And Krishna Bichara will be alone. That is called perverted logic, which will appear completely logical, but you can poo-poo that logic very clearly if one is having an open mind. That dharma is the issue. The protection of dharma is your duty. You are running away from your duty and you are justifying all this. Why these things doesn't apply in earlier wars? So many wars they have fought. Society get destroyed even in that. People get destroyed, culture gets destroyed. So many things happen in that war also. Till that time, there was no issue. Now it is our people whom I have to kill. Now that attachment is being justified. Gurudev used to call it as misplaced compassion. It's not a true compassion. It's a misplaced compassion. Overwhelmed with pity and misplaced compassion. Now he doesn't want to say it. It's my misplaced compassion. Doesn't want to accept. So we'll portray it as though it is humanitarian cause and social cause and whatnot. And the best part is, for each of those arguments, Bhagwan gives him a counter argument at that level only. So, real logic will stand the test of time, and unbiased logic it is. That is what will help us to turn. Finally, Arjun surrendered, saying, I don't know what is dharma and adharma. That was his turning point. That is open-mindedness. Then he transformed. At the end of it, he became clear and he fought the war, won it. Over. So we should be very careful what type of logic we have. Is that logic taking me close to Bhagwan, or is it taking me away from Bhagwan? And that's why in Bhakti Shastra it is very clear that be away from such people who are atheists. Till one doesn't become strong enough, don't at least enter into argument or a confrontation with these people. Whether they are atheists or whether they are perverted logicians, whoever they are. Till one doesn't become very strong and clear, don't read only some of them. Otherwise the mind will go away from Bhagwan. Now this Brahmaji is saying this. Now having said this much, he summarizes this. Rest of the part is the creation. What rest of the few verses, they are about the creation, which he spoke about earlier. Adyovatara purusha parasya kala svabhava sadasannmanascha dravyam vikaro guna indriyani virat swarat sthasnu charishnu bhrumaha. So now in summary he says that the manifestation of the Supreme is the Purusha. Then Kala, Swabhava, Prakriti in the form of cause and effect. Then the mind, then the five gross elements. Then the ego, Prakriti in the terms of three gunas. The senses. This is all from the causal to the subtle state. Now the cosmic body, the under, and then from there comes the whole cosmic being, the Virat Purusha that we saw last time. And the bodies of all the animate, inanimate beings and all are the manifestations of the Lord. So he is summarizing that part. And then he says in 42nd, you see, Aham bhavo yajna ime prajeshaha dakshadayo ye bhavadadayascha Svarlokapala, Khagalokapala, Nralokapala, Stalalokapala. He says himself and Vishnu Bhagwan. See, Yajna here means Vishnu. And Bhava means Shivji. Aham means Brahmaji. So what we discussed earlier, that every Brahmanda has one Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Like that there are hundreds and thousands of Brahmandas. Every Brahmanda has one Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And Narayana is the Mahavishnu, from whom all these have come. So that's why he says that myself, Bhava, Vishnu, then all the other lords and Daksha, Prajapatis, and devotees like you, and then the Devatas like Indra, etc. Then the guardians of the, so Dyuloka is Devatas, so that is Indra. And then this Khagaloka is a world of these birds. So Garudji, and all of these. He goes on to list all the Vidyadhara, Charanas, Yaksha, Rakshasa, Serpent, Naga, all of these. So many he goes on to list, and he says, whatever in this world is endowed with supernatural powers, with glory, with vigor, with resolution, with physical strength, whatever is possessed of splendor, that which has a wonderful color, and whatever is with or without form is the same as the ultimate truth. That's the bottom line. Tatvam param rupavad swarupam. The objective is to understand that the Lord is immanent and transcendent both. Transcendent meaning beyond creation is Mahavishnu. Beyond his power of Maya also is absolute Brahman. And as the creation also is the same Lord. So this is the beauty of this culture. Immanent and transcendent both together. Now, having said this much about creation, how do we understand the glory of this Lord? See, one is the absolute glory is realized by people who have complete Vairagya. Through contemplation, they realize Aham Brahmasmi. That is one aspect. Then the glory of the Lord can be understood even as Ishvara when this whole Srishti is created by him, sustained by him, destroyed by him. He only becomes this whole creation and he only does. So that is another way to understand his glory. But human beings still, all said and done, needs a form and a manifestation. So this avatar aspect now comes. That Brahmaji now will enumerate different avatars of the Lord. See that last shloka here in this 6th chapter is that Pradhanyato yan drisha amananti lila avataran purushasya bhrumnaha. Bhumnaha, not bhrumnaha. Bhumnaha apiyatam karna kashaya shoshana shoshanan anukramisheta iman supeshan. So now he says, mainly because avatars of Bhagavan are many. We have seen this avatar aspect earlier also which came. There on different list of some 24 or something, some avatars were given. Here another list is given, some 39 of them it will be now. Yeah, totally how many? 39, yes. Totally 39 avatars are given here. This is also to understand that there are not only 10 avatars. Dashavatar is popular. Bhagavatam is not saying Dashavatar only. Bhagavatam is saying many more. And Bhagavatam is not even saying it is in this order. Of first is Matsya, then Kurma, then Varaha, then Narsimha. That somebody has put it arranged in that way. And then we are comparing it to Darwin's theory of evolution. That is not there. Bhagavatam in that sense. Avatars of Bhagavan are there and they all are split up. They are not in this sequence. So now Brahmaji is saying here that there are many avatars. Of that Pradhanyata, few he is going to narrate as per the scriptures. And why should one know? You see, he says, the Leela avatar of the Lord, Pradhanyato Yandrisha Amananti Leela avataran Purushasya Bhumnaha. On the Bhuloka, on this earth, and I think by earth they symbolize even the other two, Bhuvar Loka and Suvar Loka also. Avatars of the Lord, because some avatars like Kurma avatar, etc., they have not happened on the earth. So that Samudra Manthan and all that. The detail will come in Bhagavatam. When it comes, we will see. But what I mean is that, yes, the avatars have happened of the Lord in Bhur Bhuva Suvaha. Why should we listen? Apiyatam Karna Kashaya Shoshana Anukramishya. the impurity of this ears, it will dry up. Why so much what is that, karna myelitis, the impurity of the ear? Because how much gossip and worldly things and all that we have heard. Remember what was said in the earlier chapters. The ears which don't hear the glory of the Lord are like the snake pits. Snake has gone inside and is staying in our heart. If that snake is Sheshnag, then it is good. Vishnu Bhagavan can enter and it will become his Shayya. But that snake is not Sheshnag. That snake is like Takshak, who has gone inside and is killing us. So listen to the Katha of the Lord. It will remove the impurities of the mind. And he says, you drink this to your heart's content. Anukrameshye chata iman supeshan. Now this avatar aspect of the Lord, now when he starts off, what Naraji had asked him, the question that Naraji had asked him, in that some of these questions Brahmaji has answered. So what we did today is this, from this verse number 39 onwards, when we did 39 to 46, these verses that we have done, all these verses till this 45, sorry, 45, not 46. They all are to answer this fourth question of Naradji. Yat samstham, it is to answer that question. That how the Lord sustains this whole universe is by his own power and his own glories he sustains this. And then he comes to describe the various leelas, the guna, leela, manvantara, avesha and vibhuti avatar. These 5 types of avatars we will see now in the next chapter that Brahmaji is going to elaborate on. Because that creator otherwise is very abstract. And this avatar aspect is very unique to our culture only. More about this I will speak in the next class, because it's a new chapter, then I don't want to just start here now. But we will take it up in the next class, that how this is very unique to, first of all, avatar concept is unique to Hindu culture. In Hindu culture also it is unique to our Vedant and Bhakti Marg. There are many who don't believe in avatar at all, even in Hindu culture. So more about it I will take up in our next class. Any questions in today's class? You can raise your hand. Haji, Vibhaji.
Swamiji, what is Manas Putra?
Mind-born son. So Brahmaji, only by his thought he creates. Biological reproduction is not necessary. So they are called Manasa Putra.
So they have the bodies like us only, all the Panchatattva and all, everything is same like us.
Subtle body. Ask the question and don't unmute, please, before you ask the question. Many of you unmute before. Just raise your hand. I will tell you to unmute. So Brahmaji and Naradji, they have subtle bodies, not like the Panchatattva oriented bodies that we have. So their bodies are like the subtle body, not the grossified bodies with the Pancha Mahabhuta grossifying between themselves, no. And that's why they are able to go in any of the lokas also. So their bodies are not like our bodies. I think they are more of light. They're more of fire-oriented, Tej-oriented bodies. Subtle level, not the gross level.
Okay, thank you.
Neetaji?
Harim Swamiji, you said about the glory of Lord can be understood by having the attitude of Aham Brahmasmi. Then the whole creation is Him. And then the third one you said something human being requires more clarification. So what was it?
I don't know now
Okay, fine. I'll listen to the talk.
because question is not clear to me because
The glory of Lord can be understood, you said, that by having the attitude of Aham Brahmasmi.
so I
You
said
said
there
3 points out of it.
so absolute truth is those who are Vedantin, they will contemplate on the self and they will realize Aham Brahmasmi. So that way they understand the glory of Supreme Absolute Truth.
Huh.
Then the second is the glory of Ishvara, which is to understand this whole creation, the source of this creation, the sustenance and the dissolution is by that Ishvara. So
Okay.
to worship that Ishvara, one may use any of the uh, earlier concepts as a Virat Roop or as a Ishtadevata, etc.
Okay.
Then the third is, but we need a specific form in manifestation. There we, so that's why this avatar aspect comes in.
Okay.
That which are the avatars of Bhagavan which have happened, and then the more we think about those leelas of the Lord, the more bhakti will arise, and through that liberation happens. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Guru Namaha.